somebody will tell me if I can be heard or not. Apparently, the last time I was on, I was speaking for several minutes into the air, but of course, people were watching me talking, and nothing could be heard. And like many times when I do these, I have an idea of what I want to say. It is not scripted. In this particular case, I do have some notes that I'm kind of going to glance at to refresh my memory. Because one of the things that I have learned over the course of these 67 Gregorian calendar years is that I am not well served by trying to retain a lot of information because it bogs down the machinery. So a lot of people sort of take great pride in all the things that they can memorize. But personally, I feel that it actually makes things a little bit more difficult and sort of really just cluttered. And I'm going to talk about something that is an age-old question, and maybe dispel, if I can, some overall myths. Now, the first thing that is very important, or not, I guess I don't want to ascribe importance or anything like that to this as much as I think it's something to consider, is that human is a title that we gave ourselves. And there is a lot of gaslighting when it comes to that concept and what it means. Because when we present ourselves as human, we're sort of saying that we're superior to other things, or we put it in a hierarchy more often than not. And we are not more important than anything. In fact, we are part of everything. And the subject that I want to broach is related to what I've experienced over the course of my lifetime. And my entire life has been a struggle. I don't enjoy sports at all. I enjoy participating in different kinds of sports. Soccer is my favorite, but I don't have a favorite baseball team. I did at one time. So, I was caught up in the materialistic plane and the things that are happening. But I've noticed how those things don't serve me well in any respect whatsoever, because when I become a fan of something, then I abandon myself. And the thing that is more important is this existence and these experiences that each of us have. Those are the most important experiences. Those are the most important things that we have. It's not, a favorite. I feel that whenever I choose anything that's a favorite, I limit myself. And so I could say that maybe, the entire game of baseball is an interesting game, but there's always been all kinds of different sports. And actually, it's not a favorite sport of mine in any respects. If I have a favorite sport, well, I would say personally, I have enjoyed playing soccer and playing tennis and playing volleyball. These are sports where there's more free movement, and they're not necessarily centered in power or special skills. Like I'm only 5'5", so basketball is definitely something that I don't like. Maybe if they lowered the hoop and played in that type of game, but that's That's really the extent. So to answer that question there, and thanks anyway. Um, the uh, Thank you. um, so I haven't played in a long time. I've always enjoyed it, and actually volleyball is definitely. And I've have noticed a few places where there are nets, and I've been and people get together to play, and I have been sort of had this little urge to at some point in time join them, and maybe I will someday when I have that opportunity. But the purpose of this here is to kind of highlight a concept that we've been working with for pretty much since we've existed our entirety, and is who are we? And nobody can answer that question. Nobody. And the easiest way to highlight why that is the case, and is that we need to put things in perspective. Okay, we need to sort of see ourselves and how small we are in reference to everything else. So I did a little research, if you will, and what I found out, okay, is that if I took my body and just squeezed it and just compressed it into just a dense mass, got all the liquid out and just compressed it into a dense mass. Well, it's my understanding. I might have to revisit this because now when I'm thinking about it, it doesn't sound necessarily, accurate. But it is my understanding that my personal frame would be reduced to about the size of one of those balls, exercise balls. Okay. Now, if I were to imagine, or you know what, let's just scratch that. Let's scratch that. And we don't even have to do that. If I compare myself to the entire planet that we live on, okay, because I don't have time. I don't experience time the way most normal people experience time. I don't compartmentalize my days with regards to, I sleep when I want and I wake up when I want. So answering that question. And I actually am a person that generates my own energy, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But going back to what I was saying, if I basically try to understand my size in reference to the surface that we exist on, okay, and relative proportions, if the Earth was a human body, okay, how big would I be in reference to that human body? And the size I would be approximately, okay, because again, I'm a smaller person, is about 75 nanometers in size. Now, nanometers is incredibly microscopic. So you cannot see 75 nanometers with the naked eye whatsoever. Now, so if you want a reference point of what is approximately 75 nanometers in size, we could look at a ribosome. Now, a ribosome is part of a living cell, and we have millions of living cells on our body, and the ribosome is involved in processing the protein. We're about the size of a ribosome. And so the ribosome is part of a living cell, and that is microscopic. But here's the kicker. A ribosome in a living cell, there are about 10 million ribosomes. Okay. So, and if I try to understand what part of my body is actually the part that is the main operating system, which I would say is the central nervous system, the brain and the nerves and everything. That represents about 2% of our total body mass. Okay, so it's a very, very small part. Nobody and taking that into account, and really we don't even have to take that into account, but I think it's kind of good to know or have that perspective as far as how small we are. Um, and so it is patently absurd for any individual that you ever talk to, okay, to tell you that they know the absolute existential truth. That's the bottom line. Nobody knows the absolute existential truth. It is beyond our capabilities. Actually, it's beyond it. It's because I don't have to believe anything. uh, all I know is what I know, and beliefs are, in as far as I'm concerned, don't have any more value than the droppings of a chihuahua. In fact, I would say the droppings of the chihuahua have more value than beliefs, because beliefs are just fantasies, and they're just sort of these artificial structures that we adapt to try to help us navigate, what is an incredibly toxic and confusing and dysfunctional environment. What you'll notice with most things is if life were to be a game, I would call the game control, because everyone is trying to control you. Everyone. And it's in your family, in society, institutions, everything wants you as a resource so that they can benefit from you. And it's gotten to that stage. We've gotten beyond the point of cooperating to have a sustainable and meaningful life, and we're actually other people's tools. I'm not going to address any questions right now. It's a matter of one of the things that I've sort of language is not really what we think it is. It's a construct, so it's not real. We have built it, and we have built it with an understanding. And if you want, you can think of it along the lines of sort of words are macro symbols, and letters are micro symbols. They each work interrelated. As you try to go back and try to figure out, how did language start? Well, I mean, we can see that all animals communicate in some forms or another. If there's danger, the birds will chirp, or certain animals have a meal, they'll make certain sounds, and these sounds basically elicit certain behaviors. And that is the essence of sort of the communication process. Really, words, more than anything, are meant to control. They've always been meant to control. At times, it's meant everything that we create, or there's an inverse relation where the things that we create that are supposed to be tools to help us actually become tools that enslave us. Of course, I'm sure that you've heard that actions speak louder than words. Actions, and that is because they do, because words are just fabrications, and you can twist them and turn them, and you can make them mean whatever you want, especially if you're talking about words that are abstract, words like freedom. And it's specifically one of the words that just comes to mind. Okay. But what I want to talk about in the context of not knowing what is real and what is not, because we do not perceive anything. We cannot perceive everything. And we were taught that we have a certain number of senses. We have all kinds of senses, more than the five basic senses that we've been told. But there has always been this struggle, and it is with regard to how we navigate this reality. And it goes, every civilization has gone through this. And there's a way that really we need to be in harmony with everything else. So we need to have a sustainable relationship. In other words, there's nobody among us is served better by having more than others. No one. Okay. I want to touch on the subject of the Antichrist. And I think and it's not, again, because I say that words are not real. Okay. And so if words are not real, if we read them in a book, they're even less real. They are constructs, and we can interpret words, and we see that all the time. People argue over every single word, every single book. They're not in agreement with what the Bible says or what this book says or this other book says. And, scientists don't agree on everything, and that is because there's one thing that I feel very comfortable saying, is that we do not live in a dimension of absolutes. This is not an absolute dimension. The only absolute that I'm aware of is death. When I am dead, I am gone. That is it. That is the only absolute that I am familiar with. And really, of course, that means that I'm no longer here. That is the absolute. I am no longer here. So navigating this plane is incredibly difficult. It's the Antichrist. So how would we define the Antichrist? And it's very simple terms. The Antichrist is, of course, the opposite of the Christ. But what is the Christ? And the Christ is more an energy signature. It is a positive vibration that affirms life. And the negative would be the negative energy signature, or the energy signature that really moves towards death. So we have this battle where we are in a state of flux. We're not really solid. We're not really gaseous. We're sort of in between. And I would argue that we are in a journey from 0 to 1. That's the journey. We are in between, and we may be at any distance. But I'm going to get back on track here, and that is with regards to the negative energy signatures. Now, just about every civilization in every type of faith, from Buddhism to Islam to Christianity, they sort of root themselves in the concept that there are certain energy signatures or certain behaviors that are that manifest a negative energy signature, and those would be pride, greed, and anger. Those are the basic 3 energies, negative energy signatures. When you embrace those emotions or the spirits, okay, it's not only bad for those around you, but it's actually bad for your own spirit. You're not happy when you're proud. You're proud. But what does that mean? That you're superior, that what you do is superior, what you've done is superior? How can we really gauge that? Or why would that be? Why are we comparing ourselves in that respect? So essentially, back in the I can't remember now, the 5th century? Is it Pope Gregory, or 590 AD? Pope Gregory, referred to as Pope Gregory the Great, he tried to put together basically what is considered the 7, they called them sins. And I don't call them sins, because sins implies a morality, and morality is fabricated, and then we start to separate ourselves. But I just refer to them as negative energy signatures. Okay. And so we have, let's start from the top of the list. And actually, the number 1 deadly sin that was established or said or stated or whatever. And this is something that was later reiterated in the writing by Dante Alighieri in the 14th century, the Divine Comedy, those seven deadly sins. So we have pride as the first one. We have greed. We have lust. We have envy. We have gluttony. We have wrath or anger. And then we have sloth. Those are the seven deadly energy signatures. And when you think about it, how well served are you by being lazy, by not wanting to do anything at all? Just kind of, you're not well served at all. Of course, and so we can see how that it's a sloth is a complacency. It's a lack of initiative. It's a lack of and it's even, and actually other thinkers prior to that considered sadness as part of that sloth. My opinions don't matter. So going backwards, so what is the opposite of sloth? Well, it's diligence. It's doing something. It's trying to accomplish something. We go to greed. Greed, of course, is trying to keep everything for yourself. You don't need it. You're trying to save it for the future, even though you don't know if you're going to have the future. And when you are greedy, you spend all your time accumulating things. That's your focus, and that's what a lot of people realize over time is they've done all this accumulating wealth, and then they don't feel fulfilled. They don't feel like they basically become dejected and depressed, and that's because they really haven't lived a full human experience. Lust is the other one. Oh, well, I should say, though, of course, that the opposite of greed is charity. You have benevolence, you share. Now we go into lust. Lust, you have the opposite is chastity or purity. But when you lust, you desire something, you treat other people like objects of desire. You don't serve yourself. You're not serving yourself. You're actually attached to a negative energy signature. Okay. Envy, same thing. If you spend all your time being envious or jealous of other people, you're not living a life. You're not experiencing life as you should. Gluttony, of course, just trying to have as much as you want. And gluttony, a lot of times people feel that it's just food, but gluttony is just trying to get as much as possible, from everything, as much, and just filling yourself up, until you burst practically. And of course, we can see how that is detrimental to our positive state. I think that everyone wants to be able to experience some sort of internal peace. You want to I think that peace, more just being settled, not having to urge to do this or do that, and just being able to sort of be yourself and discover yourself. Because I will be honest with you, I don't know who I am. In fact, I'm enjoying trying to find out who I am. I'm always doing things to try to find out who I am, and I don't push the limits or anything as far as that goes. I have sort of moved into a position of what is referred to as a homeostasis. In other words, my way of being is very even keeled. And this has been a very difficult journey for me. It's had all kinds of challenges and all kinds of setbacks and sort of redirects. And hey, how's it going? Uh, you know what? uh, any kind of insult that you want to direct at me really falls flat. So I just want to let you know that because, I'm already confident in who I am. You can say whatever you want. And it's a very sad aspect of, we've been sort of taught to be negative vibrations and, just it's sort of part of a culture that that tries to affirm the self by putting other people down, and that is really sort of the essence of an authoritarian culture. Is that in order for me to feel good, I have to think less of others. That is almost the fundamental nature of authoritarianism. And so, what an authoritarian will do is will mock another person to try to marginalize them, to try to make them feel insecure, or sort of hesitant to say anything. That little granny thing, that completely falls flat. And you wouldn't be the first person that I heard it from. Actually, I've met somebody in Tampa one time that we took a selfie, and the guy said, it looks like I took a picture with my grandmother. And I laughed because it is funny to me, because perception it's just personal. It's not really, the way we see things is not what reality is. It's simply the way we see things, and we don't see everything. We do not see everything. When I talked about the seven deadly sins, and I don't think of again as sins, I think that probably what we need to practice more is restraint. A restraint in the things, because we are compelled to do a lot of different things, and those things, a lot of them are things that we're compelled to do because we see other people's, or the things that we've learned, but they're not necessarily things that actually serve us well in the end. One of the things I do, and I have done, I move about. I will share with you. Granny here actually went out. Had 350 miles on foot in May. I would say maybe about 35% of that was jogging. And when I jog, my pace is just around, it's getting close to, it's 11 and a half minutes per mile. And I maybe can run 5K in about 30 minutes. Which is, 5K, you can figure it out, or 10K is 6.25 miles, and I can run that around 73 minutes or so. Yeah, you're welcome, young, whatever you are, or little piece of feces. So what I talked about is the seven deadly sins. And so any person that embraces all of these negative energy signatures, lust, sloth, envy, gluttony, greed, that is essentially and figuratively is an antichrist, because the opposite of those things would be the Christ-like signatures, okay? The positive signatures, the humility, the kindness, the charity, the respect that we issue that person. So, the person that's saying granny and trying to be disrespectful or whatever, that's just a negative energy signature. Maybe it makes them happy for whatever reason, and they can go along their merry way. But like I said, whatever they say, that falls flat. So it is, if you see a person, and I think that we can think of some people that embrace all of those 7 negative energy signatures. Okay. They are proud. They are lustful. They are greedy. They are gluttonous. They have anger and experience anger towards others. You know? Really, they're slothful. They really don't do much. They want to just sleep and play golf and what have you all the time. So and envy, of course, and jealousy. So if a person embraces all 7 of those, figuratively, they are the Antichrist. Figuratively. There's people that take things literally, but again, literally, these are all constructs, and we can create things in our head whatsoever. And of course, this is a construct as well, but the reality of how we feel, that is the bottom line. Are we angry all the time? Are we jealous all the time? Are we resentful? Are we competing all the time? How much peace do we actually experience? Is that the reason that people drink alcohol, so that they can experience some kind of artificial peace? What I have found by moving, and this is a daily practice that I have, almost daily. If I don't run, I walk. And I actually spent 2 weeks on the street. And a shout out to my homeless brethren, Malay and Tracy, who I have a profound respect for. I meet people all the time, and I think that probably for somebody my age, I meet more people than a lot of people my age do. Now, of course, age is what I might do is ban you. But stay healthy and eat healthy. I absolutely agree with that. That is what I do. I try, and the way I try to stay healthy is by running. Now, some of you might know this, and some of them, but I used to weigh 250 pounds. Now, I didn't use any kind of drug or anything like that to get down to 135. And it wasn't, it was a long process. It was a difficult process. It was a learning process. But primarily the way I achieved it was by moving, not just moving sort of casually, but actually intentionally, and trying every time, setting a goal for myself. In fact, more so, every time I would set a goal, I would just push a little beyond that goal. And that is something that I practice on a continual basis. And as I was doing these things, I started shedding a lot of not only the fat, the visceral fat that a lot of men have. And actually, since we're in this little exchange with regards to male and female, I will say this. First of all, I don't think of myself as either. And I don't even think of myself as a human. I simply am a fractal of the consciousness that we come from. Okay, we are a piece, and that piece of that larger something that gives us the consciousness that we have, in order to sort of continue to have its energy, what it has to do, it has to exercise and practice. And so it extends outward, and it places itself on a material plane to have these experiences, to learn. And so I am a piece of that. And this is my spaceship, so to speak, and I use it to explore things. Of course, the healthier it is, the more it can explore, the further it can go. And that is what I found. When I was 250 pounds, which it's not, did I smile? Sure, I smiled on occasions, but my back hurt. I was depressed often. I would be anxious. I didn't have a lot of energy. I didn't have a lot of motivation. That is the complete opposite of where I am right now. It is the complete opposite. On average, so for the last year, I've basically been on foot for anywhere between 150 miles and now 355 plus for that's probably the largest amount that I've recorded with regards to how much ground I've covered. I don't feel well served by being restricted or confined to a very limited space in any way whatsoever. I feel more joy going out, meeting people, even though, and every person, I mean, is every encounter is not a positive encounter, but in the sense that, there is a negative type of wall or whatever, but it is a learning experience. How to navigate the negative energies, of course, is part of, of this experience on this material plane. Is if we lived in a dimension where absolutes exist, we would be robots because there would be an absolute. This is what you do. Okay. But there are no absolutes in this dimension. I don't want to be a stick in the mud. I don't want to say this is who I am and then live that life for the rest of time. Okay. I want to go out. And like I said, I feel that if I know who I am, I kind of die. And I'd rather try to learn more about life as long as I can, because I know at one point in time, it's going to end. It will stop. And I've been through a lot of peaks and valleys, more than most people can imagine. No stable childhood. I mean, now, of course, there's a lot of people that are in that boat, but what does that mean? Well, it's just moving around. Some people that I've known actually, for the entirety of their life, lived in the same house with two parents, 18 years, the same experiences. Now, that can be suffocating, I suppose, in a certain way, but it's also a stable environment. It does present different opportunities when a person has that, as opposed to moving back and forth or moving in different, getting pulled in different directions and having different people influence you. All of us, every single one of us, without exception, is a product of our experiences. And we remember some experiences and we don't remember other experiences, but they're all part of who we are. If we experience a lot of negativity in our life, okay, it's not unreasonable to expect that you're going to breathe out a lot of negativity as well, because that is what you learn. In fact, I had a friend tell me that not too long ago, or a friend that is I wouldn't say that I don't associate with anymore, and it was not by my choice. Actually, it was by theirs, because they heard me say something that really didn't agree with them, and what they heard was that I said that drinking alcohol is dumb. And I'll still say that because there is no value in consuming any amount of alcohol whatsoever, because our biochemistry doesn't want it. It doesn't want it. We've adapted to it. We can process it, and of course, small amounts aren't going to just completely destroy our system or anything like that, but really it serves no purpose. It serves no purpose at all whatsoever. And, now Buddhism talks about three different poisons. They talk about the moha, the raga, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, the dvesha. The moha refers to ignorance and delusion. The raga is attachment and greed. And the dvesha is aversion or anger. Hinduism has 6 enemies of the mind. And again, there's a kama, krodha. I have my notes here, lobha, moha. And again, these are anger, delusion, greed, pride, envy. So all of these, and even the things that Pope Gregory the first put out, they had different iterations of those notions have been there. So we've always struggled to sort of understand what we do and how it is that we can live a better life. And what I have found for myself is that restraint and discipline in caring for the vessel, okay, is what gets me further. I really don't think that overall the laws are necessary. The laws, again, are something that attempts to control. Everything gets distorted. These are all egos. I mean, why are there different branches of Christianity? Because it's all ego. It's different people that have have this, that they feel like they're the moral superior center, and then they try to tell everybody else how it is that they're supposed to be. Okay, but that's really not necessary. I think most of us should know that what's going to benefit us the most is by having the ability to move, exercise our body, just like a lion, just like a leopard, just like a dog, just like a cat, just like a beaver. When they are free, they move about, they go about their business, they do their things that they do in order to survive in the basics of way. They look for shelter, they look for food, okay, and they basically, move about. That is what existence is for, is as we move about and learn about things. So, there are people that embrace the spirit of the Antichrist, but in order to be the Antichrist in full, they have to embrace all 7 different energy signatures or negative energy signatures. And to be more Christ-like would be to embrace the opposite of those 7 energy signatures. There's all kinds of teachers in all kinds of places that tell us very similar things. Okay, you want to enjoy life, but you can't enjoy life if people are telling you what life is, because we don't know what life is. The purpose, life is life. It's self-affirming. Okay, and death is death. Life is life, and death is death. That's pretty much it, right? So, if I am conscious at this point in time, okay, why would I want others to restrict me? Of course, now here's a thing. And remember that I didn't come into this with a script. I'm probably going to end this real soon. But like I said, I've learned a lot in the process of reducing my weight. I didn't do it with any drugs or anything like that. Well, the one drug that helped me was pot, because it didn't slow me down. I was still able to do what I wanted. I would smoke before I run. Now I don't even feel that need. That was probably the last need that I've gotten rid of. It is the last need that I've got. The lust was the other one that was right before that, where you just feel this sexual need, okay, and that's gone too. But what is not gone is my ability to enjoy life. And owning a car doesn't allow me to enjoy life. Owning anything, actually, beyond the basics of what I need, just shelter or some glasses or whatever, some communications, because it's important to be able to communicate with certain people. But overall, I spend the least amount of money possible. I don't like money in general. So I live basically with income that most people can. And I used to have, almost like, when I considered my compensation and my benefits and everything, I was in the 3-figure category at one point in my life, but I wasn't happy. And I saw the trap of the game is when you have money, when you have a certain amount of money, then you want more. You can never have enough. You can never have enough. So I just stopped wanting. I just don't want it anymore. and I feel a lot more at peace with just getting by. And again, I do things like I sing. I share ideas with people. I talk about things, and I have a good time. And I guess I'm going to stop right there and leave it at that. Thanks for joining, those of you who've done, and except for the little cretins that think they're funny. Again, I take it in stride, and that's pretty much it for now. Again, sort of keep a perspective, be mindful. I will share one little note. I had a gentleman approach me at a place where I can go into bars. I don't know if you know any alcoholics or anything like that, or people who were former, alcoholics or members of AA, and they will say, I can't walk into a bar. I can't talk about booze because then it makes me want some. And that's completely gone here. So I walk into bars with no problem, and I drink water, and I have a good time. Of course, they don't, not necessarily fond of that. But what I do is that I tip the people. So the bartender, I just give them a couple dollars. Say, thanks. That's it. Even though they're not getting me anything, and thanks for being there. And I'm sorry, it's unfair to you that I don't drink, and I know that you make a living by serving poison, but I don't say that. But I try to be fair and friendly, and I go and I sing, and people enjoy what I share. I can tell the difference. Oh, and this is something that I was saying a little earlier, that I haven't done this in a while. But there's a gas station that is just a little bit over half a mile away from where I live. Okay. Oh, and I would walk there, and if I had have the app and gives me a free cup of coffee or a discounted cup of coffee, and just go there, and I'd stand there and I'll listen to music, and I'll look at the people that go in and go out, and I see a lot of happy faces, and it's not surprising that I wouldn't see happy faces, because most people, they are forced to do the things, or they feel forced to do the things they're forced to do. They have to get up at a certain time, and and meet certain obligations. I have obligations, and I meet them. With the little that I have. In fact, when I meet those obligations, I have even less. So in reality, I survive with even much less than a lot of people do. So anyway, I think that's about it for now. Perspective is, so anyway, I was telling a story. So I've been going to this place, and I have a good time. They have a great stage and great sound system, and it's a lot of fun, and there's people are having fun. And I met this gentleman around the first time that I went there, and he walked up to me after I sang, and he's about my age, likes to dye his hair jet black. And he likes to dance when he hears some music, and he's kind of treated as the odd bird in the place a little bit. And and he just goes in there and he kind of does his thing. He doesn't overdrink or anything like that. He just kind of moves around. And he said to me, he basically said, "You're a real rocker," or something to that effect. And so other times that I go by, now I know his name, and we say hi and fist bump, and and it's gotten to the point where he's shared stories, about himself. But he asked me a question, and I thought it was pretty funny. And this is maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and he said, "Are you an alien?" And I guess I said, "Well, the gig is up. Yes, I am." And he nodded. "I thought so." He said, "You look like a short Nordic." Okay. But then we got engaged in a conversation where he shared the fact that he just became a grandfather. And I said, "Oh, that's wonderful. That's great." And do you see your grandchild? And so, well, the grandchild is in England. So, do you know when you're going to get going? So, I'm working on it. So, and then the fact that I took a time to find out more about him, really, is something that I don't know. He just appreciated. And I think that's one of the things that's really missing when it comes to engaging with people is that we're more, wanting to display our ego and we're kind of boasting more about who we are. And, we are not taking a genuine interest in other people. Yeah. Or, another situation that I experienced, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, I went to an event that's a quarterly event called the Milk Mark in the Milk District of Orlando. And for the first time, they had a stage with bands, and they decided to have a karaoke power hour. In between the four bands. So there are two bands that started and then two bands afterwards. And then there's a power hour right around 3 o'clock. It was hot and it was also a rainy day. There's a nice high stage, of course, good sound and everything. And I sang a song in Spanish called Corazón Espinado by Santana. And, I could see there were a few people that were dancing and people were standing. And afterwards, when I was talking to the gentleman who actually recorded a little bit for me, and he was one of the sort of the MC, I should have gotten his name. I kind of feel bad that I was sort of caught up in the moment that I didn't do that. A lady walked up to me, so older, about my age, and she just said, "Can I take a selfie with you?" And I said, "Sure." Smiled for the camera, and then she gave me a little peck on the cheek and called me a papi chulo. And I fell short here because at that time, I guess I was so caught up in the moment, I really should have asked her, "Hey, thanks, what's your name?" And maybe this, again, experiences are about learning from the experience. It's not just about having the experience, but learning from the experience. So, the important thing is, of course, that we keep an open mind because none of us know the truth. And I would stop anybody that tries to tell me, because I had a conversation where somebody tried to tell me that no absolutes exist. Because we are taught this, and there are religions that teach us, and there's an authoritarian basis, especially with what are referred to as the three Abrahamic religions. Again, I could be pronouncing it incorrectly, but they are all that their foundation is that there is an absolute authority, and these are the absolute notions that you have to adhere to. And of course, all these things are creations. They're not real, and they're more based in the egos and the insecurities. That sort of we have this need to feel superior to others. I feel that need is actually manufactured as opposed to real. I do think that, again, we are fractals, a piece of that larger consciousness. And our job is basically to explore this reality and to extract from it what we can, and to bring the message back to that, or give that message back to that consciousness, that ultimate consciousness that feeds us all. And when I say all, I don't mean just humans. I mean all the animals and every living, organic creature that's on this sphere, because we are all interconnected. Inside our body, we have the DNA from fish and from worms and from insects and from everything. So, if I'm an alien, I'm not an alien from outer space. I'm an alien from inner space, because that is where I've traveled. I've gone inside of myself to try to understand myself and how I relate to this external reality. And that it's not, it might sound like a kind of like a you know, uh, an effortless journey, but it is not, because part of it is being honest with myself, honest about the things that I've done, and trying to understand them and try to understand where that behavior came from. And then, and then basically coming to terms with it. There's a lot of people that regret the things that they've done in their past. I don't, or they're ashamed. And there was a time when I did experience shame with regards to what I've done in the past. But I don't anymore, because again, I don't, we have been basically put into the sphere, and we have been given a lot of misinformation. And so we're kind of working our way through the dark. When we exit the womb, we sort of leave one cocoon and come into another cocoon. And then inside of that cocoon, we actually create our own cocoon based on the information that we've got from that other cocoon. So and that is the matrix, the system that tries to monitor, control your behavior in every way whatsoever. Nobody should have to work 8 hours in a day to have a dignified life. No one. That is an aberration, and that is basically the evil mechanics of control. With that being said, to the reverbal, whatever. Okay, well, here, I'm going to give you that if you're still there. Just because it's fun, right? You have fun doing your thing. I have fun doing my thing. So with that all being said, it's been an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm probably going to head out for a run in, I don't know, 3-4 hours, and I'll just continue doing some research and, maybe practicing a few songs and learning a few more things, and, dealing with more, just kind of enjoying life as best as I can, or experiencing life of restraint, and sustainability. The individual is important, but it is not more important, because we cannot and we do not live without others. That's the bottom line. Okay, we can isolate ourselves as much as we want, but at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult, to be. Anything that we accumulate is going to be on the basis of what somebody else has done anyway. So anyway, it's almost an hour, and I guess that's long enough. So take care, and have an experience or two. Expand your orbit.